week, I murdered a rock, injured a stone, hospitalized a brick. I'm so mean I make medicine sick.
Top of the morning, fight fans. This is Hrgovic'S with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Joseph Spidey Parker. Get this. Joseph Parker also declines Filip Hrgovic IBF eliminator Tony Yoka next. Wow. Joseph Parker has turned down the IBF heavyweight title eliminator against Filip Hrgovic for the #1 mandatory on the IBF rankings. Number 6 is Tony Yoka, who twice beat Hrgovic in the amateur ranks, including in the 2016 Olympics. The unbeaten 6'7" Yoka, which is 11-0 with 9 KOs, is fighting this month on January the 15th against Martin Bacali in Paris, France. Yoka's team will need to quickly decide whether to accept the IBF eliminator against Hrgovic, which is 14-0. This is a bad matchup for Hrgovic if his old nemesis Yoka accepts the fight against him in the IBF title eliminator. Yoka had Hrgovic's number in the amateur ranks, outboxing him and making it look easy. The guy that gave Yoka problems en route to his 2016 Olympic gold was Britain's Joe Joyce. That was a tough fight for Yoka, and many boxing fans felt that Joyce was robbed. Nevertheless, Yoka versus Joyce was a thrilling fight to watch, with both guys throwing bombs nonstop. Okay, according to Dan Raphaels, says Hrgovic's team reports that former WBO champion Parker, back to him, is the latest fighter to reject the fight with the El Animal to determine the IBF mandatory for champion Alexander Usyk. Wow. Okay. Well, we know the first, and that's Luis Ortiz. Now, Luis Ortiz is not by himself. Who joins him in ducking Hrgovic is Joseph Parker. Like I said earlier, this is not a surprise to me. I am not surprised that Parker turned that fight down. I am not. I think Parker is trying to weigh his options. I think he, whenever someone asks you a question about a particular fighter, and then in return, that person or that team gives you an array of other fighters' names, that's a dead giveaway that that fighter or that team does not want that fight, okay? I mean, Errol Spence did it to Terrence Crawford. A lot of fighters do it. They throw up other names, right, in the mix. Luis Ortiz did it with Andy Ruiz and others, right? So Hrgovic, unfortunately, is in a situation where nobody really wants to fight him except for Yoka. Maybe. Yoka might not want that smoke because amateurs and professionals is a bit different. However, I'll tell you this. Sometimes it doesn't matter who you are. If you get beat by someone and they figure you out, sometimes that person just has your number, amateurly or professionally. I've seen it time and time again. I'm going to give you 2 examples on a high end and a low end. On the high end, De La Hoya could never beat Sugar Shane. Okay? Just on another high end, Sugar Shane and Vernon Forrest. Sugar Shane could never beat Vernon Forrest. De La Hoya could never beat Sugar Shane. Close fights, good fights, competitive fights, classic fights, but he couldn't beat Sugar Shane. Sugar Shane couldn't beat Vernon Forrest. Right? They had their fighters' numbers. On a low end, Mr. Grant, the alien Grant versus James Butler. James Butler just could not knock out Grant. He could not. Even though he filed him and got suspended and went to jail and all that, that was just a frustration from the reality that he couldn't do that. He couldn't beat him. He couldn't win. So Hrgovic may be in a similar situation with Tony Yoka, okay? Tony Yoka may be that guy that decides to take him on, but it's up to Filip. He can't in return do what he's seen other people do. It makes no difference. And let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about Luis Ortiz, which is 42 years of age, 2 losses. And let's talk about Joseph Parker, which is 29 years of age, with also 2 losses. Okay. One's a former WBO. The other one's a 2-time WBC challenger. Okay. What are these guys teaching a young fighter like Hrgovic? They're teaching him to be bitter. That's right. Bitter. They're teaching him to, hey, well, you guys don't want to fight me. What do I do when I get in your position? Not fight the guys that were in my position. So basically, Joseph Parker and Luis Ortiz are bad role models, especially when it comes to taking on challenges that they should take. That's what's killing the sport of boxing, because these fighters become bitter. Look at Errol Spence. Errol Spence went from I will stop everyone, Golovkin, Canelo, this, that, and the other, and he can't even fight the fighters in his own weight class. You see what I'm saying? He was just this once hungry dude. Look at Keith Thurman, same guy, same type of way. When push came to shove, I want the big fights. I don't want the hell with all these other fights. So what in essence, these guys are teaching these other fighters to be bitter and turn around and duplicate the same behavior that they've done. So hopefully, if Hrgovic finally gets on some kind of way by cracking the door, by beating Yoka, or getting a fight with Joyce or whatever, hopefully he won't take on the same role that these fighters are doing today in a different, or should I say a higher position. But anyway, that's my counterpunch on Joseph Parker declining the IBF route, mandatory. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.